Yeah. Okay, why don't I do the introduction here and then Chris will get started. So, welcome to the Climate Reality Chicago Metro member meeting. We do this the third Thursday of every month. My name is Tom Coleman. I'm co-chair along with Bruce Mainzer. Our chapter is about 50% in the city of Chicago and about 50% in the suburbs. So it's quite a challenge for us, actually. We're all over the place. We have people focused on communications and membership and campaigns. We could always use some additional help in those areas, especially membership going into 2025. We also have campaign teams, and Pam Tate is responsible for the overseeing of the campaign teams, electric vehicles, solar panels, regenerative agriculture, trees and nature-based solutions, divest, defund, desponsor, which gets into legal issues, plastics and plastic coalition, Chicago building decarbonization. We have our next member meeting next month. In fact, is going to be on Chicago building decarbonization. So if you're interested in, like big buildings and, school campuses and all of that, Rachel will be dealing with that. And tonight we have Suburban Climate Action. Chris will be talking to us. So she'll deal with electric school buses being better for our children's health and those emitting diesel fumes. Solar panels on site can save school districts substantial money. These are just some of the benefits of electrifying schools, and government funds are available for a lot of these things. Tonight, we're going to hear from Chris Murphy, and she'll deal with how to lower your school's carbon footprint, and she knows what resources are available and how to access them. Chris is chair of the Suburban Climate Action Team. It's one of the teams I mentioned earlier. She's an atmospheric scientist who has worked in village government and now has her own consulting business. She consults mainly with municipal officials, helping them work towards sustainability. Um, she's certified climate change professional, and she will explore how schools can become more sustainable, why they should switch to renewable energy and electric vehicles, what resources are available, and how you can encourage your school districts to take action. So thank you for attending tonight. Make sure your name and emails in the chat if you want a copy of the PDFs and the slides. So why don't you go ahead, Chris, take it away.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for everyone for coming tonight. Just an overview of the presentation tonight. Hopefully you should be able to answer these questions when I'm done. What can schools do to become more sustainable? Why should schools switch to clean energy and vehicles? Which school districts in our region are leading this transition? And what resources are available to schools to assist them in their transition to lower carbon footprint? And how can you encourage your school district to take action? So first off, I want to start off with the Climate Reality Project National has a Green Schools campaign. We don't talk a lot about it in our chapter. They are having a kickoff meeting on October 30th at 6 p.m. At the end of this presentation, I'll go ahead and put that link to register if you're interested in the chat. So, we are going to get some national support, and hopefully we can collaborate on our campaign together. Also, to start off, I just want to highlight that last year or earlier this year, back in June, the state of Illinois legislature passed a bill for climate education in high school beginning in 2026. So that's a really great thing because, we all know there's so much disinformation out there, or if you read comments on social media, some people just don't seem to believe climate change is real. So it's great that that education is going to be in our schools now officially. So, just to kind of get us started here, I just want to show there's some comparisons with school districts that they're just like us. They have buildings, they have appliances in those buildings, the lightings, computers, water heaters. They have vehicles, they have buses, and they also have some passenger class vehicles, maintenance pickup trucks, that kind of thing. And of course, they're producing waste just like we are. They get that electric bill, that gas bill, gasoline or diesel bill, and that trash bill as well. So really, there's a lot of similarities in what we talk about in all kinds of buildings and within our own carbon footprint with schools. And of course, all those things generate greenhouse gas emissions. So how do we reduce those things? It's a lot of the same that we've talked about, but just on a larger scale for schools. So I'm going to start here with waste. Schools obviously go through a lot of single-use plastic and styrofoam in cafeteria or supplies, that kind of thing. A lot of convenient single-service packaging in those lunch boxes. I know as a mom, I try to avoid those. I try to get the big Costco pack and then put it in smaller reusable containers in my son's lunchbox. So that way we're not, just creating a pile of trash at a school. Reusable water bottles. That's another thing. Instead of having just a disposable water bottle, refill that reusable water bottle, put their name on it, take it to school every day. And then hoping that they have recycling and composting bins at school in the cafeteria. A lot have recycling, not all of them have composting yet. So that's something we were trying to work on too. And then what do you do with uneaten food, whether it's half eaten or not eaten, and just general food waste. And that's where we want to educate and start that composting campaign in schools. Seven Generations Ahead, a local nonprofit, they do an excellent job at educating schools and working with them. They have a Zero Waste Schools newsletter. I put the link there. You can see what their program's all about. That's a great resource for schools. If your school wants to know, well, how do I do this? How do we start reducing our waste? That's a great place to send them. So let's start talking a little bit about buildings. K through 12 school districts spend over $8 billion annually on energy costs, and that is a quote from the Department of Energy. So there's a great reason why they should go high efficiency and switch over to those zero emissions electric equipment. Of course, they can reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, improve air quality by not burning gasoline inside the schools. But then we have some issues with those appliances may have a higher upfront cost. How do they pay for them? Then the cost to continue to operate and maintain them over time, and even new technology where staff may not be familiar in how to operate that and maintain that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Energy. Buildings waste 30% of our energy. That's pretty typical. Same for schools. And about 10% can actually be saved just by implementing low cost measures, such as timing the thermostats, timing auto turn off light switches, those kinds of things. Just being aware of where we're using energy, shutting off the lights. I mean, it's a pretty simple thing, right? Making sure doors and windows are closed at the end of the day. So those energy efficiency upgrades, it can actually save schools 25% or more on annual energy costs. And when you're replacing equipment, that's really the best time to just purchase that more energy efficient equipment rather than we always talk about we're not going to replace things that are still in service. And then if they install solar systems, those have a typical payback period of less than 10 years. And then combining those energy efficiency upgrades and that on-site electricity generation can save the average school district up to about $6 million annually. I do want to point out that school districts, one of their highest costs, usually after staff, and particularly with transportation, is their energy costs. So that's a big deal. If they can reduce that cost, they can save hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I want to talk about some clean bus examples now. So in 2023, the US EPA awarded some bus grants just here in our region. Within our state, 28 districts, $48 million was given to Illinois. And then just some, I want to call it some school districts in our region here in the Chicago land area. West Aurora got $5 million for 25 buses. Naperville 203 got $1 million for 5 buses. Palatine got $5 million for 25 buses, and Park Forest got a little over $1 million for 5 buses. So that's great to really offset those costs because the electric school buses can actually cost more than the regular diesel buses. Some other examples of school districts in our area that are leading the charge here. We've got New Trier High School. They have solar panels, EV chargers. They do composting. Chicago Public Schools, they have a climate action plan. They're participating in 2 federal building programs, the Department of Energy Better Buildings and the Federal Building Better School Infrastructure Program. That's a federal program. Naperville 203 has a carbon action plan and a greenhouse gas accounting. Grays Lake has over 2 megawatts there of solar on the ground and roof arrays. Huntley has over 5 megawatts of solar. They have 12 electric vehicle chargers for vehicles and buses, and they're actually looking at installing a new community solar field too. So that's really great information. And why I bring that up is because if your school district is struggling to get started on some of these areas, it's really great to hear from a school district who's done it. So, tell them, point out, hey, this school district up the street did it. Why don't you give them a call and see how it went for them? So there's a lot of resources out there for schools right now. So I'm going to go through a whole list of them here. This public school carbon-free assessments is a big one. So this resulted from CEJA, if you remember that, back in 2021. And so basically, ComEd is required to provide these free assessments to the school districts. So what they go in is they go in and they look at their energy efficiency, where there's opportunities to make upgrades and save money, in their insulation, their building envelopes, their space and water heating, and how they can electrify those, transportation electrification, and how much solar energy potential they have on their roof and on their grounds. And so that can really help the school districts get started and make their plan, know what they need to do, which is really important because when you're looking at a lot of these grants that I'll talk about in a few minutes, you need to know what you need to do first. And so this is a great way to have an expert come in, no cost to the school district, and get help them get started. So I really highly encourage this. If you do one thing, this is the thing that you do. You tell them about this public school carbon-free assessment. The next thing that is another wonderful opportunity here that we have is the Illinois Green Alliance Green Schools program. They can provide a mentor to the school district or to a particular school. And they have all kinds of tools and roadmaps to help communities or school districts get started. Just depends what they want to do for a project. They can pick whatever they want. Again, that's at no cost. And the current application is open until November 11th. So this is a great way for them to get started. Maybe they want to do that composting in their cafeteria or have a zero waste day or something like that. So this is a really great program too to help them get started on a project. World Resources Institute, they have a ton of resources here for electric school buses. They have this total cost of ownership calculator. You can see a graphic of that on the right hand of the screen here. And basically, they will break it down from diesel to electric, what's the upfront cost, what's the fuel, what's the maintenance, comparisons between the two different kinds of buses. So that's really great because I know that the people who deal with the fleets are really going to want to know this information. And again, I'm not qualified to calculate this, but this tool will help them get started. WRI also has another resource, a step-by-step guide for school bus electrification. So basically, they lead them through all the steps about how to do this. And that's really great because a lot of communities just feel like we don't know where to start. What should we do? How should we do it? National Renewable Energy Lab, or NRELM, they have a no-cost technical assistance program for clean buses. So what the school district does is they can email them and say, hey, we need some technical assistance. Can you help us? Or here's where we're stuck. Here's what we're not sure what we should do. So they can help out there. They have experts. Again, I'm not an expert in electric school buses, but these people are. So it's really great for them to have a resource to go to. Some more resources. There's a lot of guidance out there on what school districts can do. EPA put out the energy efficiency programs in K-12 schools. New Building Institute put out the decarbonization roadmap guide for school building decision makers that can really help them figure out what they need to do. And Rocky Mountain Institute put out a guide called HVAC Choices for Student Health and Learning, what policymakers, school leaders, and advocates need to know about all-electric high-performance HVAC equipment. So these are really great documents. They can read these, get some references, case studies, figure out how to calculate the costs, where to start. And I've looked through these, and I think that they've got a lot of great information in, especially if you're not quite sure where to start. Some more resources. The U.S. Department of Education has a Green Ribbon Schools program. Our U.S. Department of Energy, they have an Efficient and Healthy Schools campaign. The US DOE has Better Buildings specifically for school districts. So that's the one that I mentioned that Chicago's Public Schools was participating in. The U.S. Green Building Council, they have leadership in energy and environmental design for schools. So that will help them get a certification or rating, or if they're going to build a new school or addition, to make sure that it is as green as possible. They also have a Center for Green Schools program. So a lot of these programs are out there that can really help school districts get through the program. So now we have to talk about how are we going to pay for all this? And that's always the tricky question when you're talking to a school district. They're like, oh, that would be great. We would love to do all these different things. Sure, right? But then the pushback's always, well, how are we going to pay for this? And this is where having some of this information to help guide them or push them in the right direction can help get their projects off the ground. So there's some financing. So earlier this year in June, the state passed a bill to allow school districts to borrow from the Illinois Climate Bank for clean energy projects. So say a school district wanted to put up a large solar array on their roof, they can borrow money from the Illinois Climate Bank for that project and receive a low interest loan for that. Another financing mechanism that we're hoping we'll have more details on soon is through the US EPA's Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund that is creating green banks that is supposed to provide low or no interest financing for renewable energy and efficiency projects. So as soon as we hear something, details of who is administering or where people can apply for that, we'll let you know. And then there's some incentives. So one of the big ones that just came out as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act is called elective pay. And that's basically a direct payment from the IRS. And you think of that as like a tax credit. Like when you get solar, you get a tax credit. But because school districts are tax exempt, they don't normally pay taxes or to file taxes. And so what this is, they can there's a new program where they can basically file for that credit directly, and that's what it's called is direct pay or elective pay. And so for electric vehicles, they can receive up to $7,500 per passenger vehicle, and they can receive up to $40,000 credit per bus, electric bus. So, that can really bring down the cost of those vehicles for them. For buildings, they're eligible for the renewable energy and battery storage. It's a 30% base credit if they meet labor requirements, just saying that they have to pay prevailing wages and use apprenticeship programs. There's some additional credits for domestic content and disadvantaged communities based on the equipment that they're ordering. There's a really great guide. It's called This is PlanetEd.org, and I did include the link there at the bottom that kind of lays it all out. So again, you don't have to be that tax expert because I know I'm certainly not, but you can refer them to that guide and they can look through it and figure it out with their finance department. So there's a bunch of rebates too available for school districts. So one of them on solar is the Illinois Solar Renewable Energy Credit. It's through the Illinois Shines program. And again, that just like for you and I, that rebate is based on how much energy will be generated at their site. There's also ComEd net metering, which is that credit to the bill when you produce more energy than you consume. And a lot of times what I've heard from school districts is they said, we're going to be consuming all the energy that we're producing. So even though they sign up for net metering, they may not see that benefit on their bill, but then also they're getting charged, they're using less electricity to begin with. So they're being charged. So their bill will go down, but they may not be able to overproduce like some of us can. So that's really great programs there for solar. Illinois EPA has a electric vehicle charging station rebate. So that covers up to about 80% of the cost, and that application should be coming soon. So we want to keep a lookout for that. Another rebate right now that's available right now is the ComEd point of purchase electric vehicle rebate. The rebate varies from $5,000 to $180,000 depending on the vehicle. It does include electric school buses, and they are partnered with dealerships in the region. So in this area, they are partnered with Lion Electric and Shanahan for electric school buses. So now on to grants. Grants are usually more competitive. You have to apply, you have to be, a lot of times you have to have your projects ready to go. So this one is called Renew American Schools Grant, and it can be anywhere from $500,000 to $15 million per award. It includes energy efficiency for buildings, the envelope, HVAC, lighting, controls, ventilation, renewable energy, vehicles, and alternative vehicle purchasing. So you can put that charging station in if you need it. There is a cost share on it, and right now the application's closed for this fiscal year. It was already awarded. But why I like to put these in here for ones that may not be open right at the moment is I want to make sure that they know for next year. So then can start preparing. They can read what the application was from the last round, and they can figure out what they need to get started preparing. What numbers do they need? Do they need to write up their project? What do they need to do to be ready? Because a lot of times when these grants open, the application's only open for a couple months, and you really don't have time to get all that ready. And you have to be ready for when that opens and then be able to submit. So just like to point that out. Always be ready for that next grant. Along with that, the federal has this Energy Champions Leading the Advancement of Sustainable Schools or CLASS prize. What that is they train your facilities staff. Maybe they don't know the most current electric HVAC equipment or something like that. So they basically come in and they help train staff on how to maintain and operate all this equipment, which is really great because we always hear, oh, well, we're not comfortable with it because we don't know how to operate and maintain it. So that's a big help there. There's also Energy Class free on-demand training online. So that's really great because then anyone can go look at that anytime and get some training there. Another grant that's open right now is the US EPA's Clean School Bus Program. So for this year, there's $965 million available. It can be for electric, compressed natural gas, or propane gases, and you can only request up to 50 buses. Chargers for buses are eligible as well, and third-party contractors are eligible. So if your school district contracts out your bus service to maybe Durham or National Express or First Student, those contractors are also eligible. So let's pass along the word and make sure that everybody's getting a chance to take care of this. There's no cost share, which is really great. You don't see that a whole lot. So they can actually receive the full amount of the bus. And that is due January 9th. So make sure if you're going to talk to your school district, you tell them about that one right there. Another grant is from the Illinois EPA Driving a Cleaner Illinois program. So this one, last time we saw it was last year in 2023. And again, I'm putting this on here because we expect a future round very soon. They should be ready. This does have a cost share of 25%, and it is capped at $250,000 per bus or $20,000 per location for charging. So again, planning federal grants, state grants, how are you going to pay for all this? Another grant that we have not seen yet, but they've told us is coming, is the Illinois Transportation Electrification Infrastructure. That's for medium and heavy duty chargers. So keep a lookout for that too. That's a great way to install those chargers. One thing I want to bring up is that in last year's legislative session in 2023, Illinois had introduced this bill in the Senate for electric school buses. And basically, it read that all the school buses purchased or contracted or leased beginning in 2028 were going to have to be electric. And then 2030 for any school district that was considered disadvantaged. And then it provided that all school buses, no matter what, had to be electric after 2035. Unfortunately, this bill died in the Senate, never made it pass, but there is possibly some legislation that we might see in the next session for electric school buses. So keep an eye on what's going on with the state because they are looking at pushing this goal of electric vehicles and electric buses. And so we want to keep an eye on that and advocate for those. Or again, if it passes, let our school districts know, because that's really where, if they are mandated to do these things, a lot of these grants, these rebates, they're really going to need to use them to achieve those goals and stay in compliance with state law. So some next steps. So what can you do right now, or after this call? You can contact your school district. You can contact that superintendent and the school board members. You can set up a conversation with them, set up a call, meet with them. You can even share these slides with them and give them this as a resource. Definitely promote that carbon-free assessment. Share that they can join the Illinois Green Schools program. Again, you don't have to be an expert. You can just be a connector. You don't have to have all the answers, but what you can do is say, I can find someone who knows more about that. I can connect you to them. So don't feel like, don't contact them because you know everything about school buses or buildings or that kind of thing. So just get started and contact them. Let them know that a lot of these resources are out there, and that you would like to see them in your district. So to conclude, hopefully now you understand why school districts and school buildings and operations need to be more sustainable and reduce their emissions, reduce their electricity consumption, switch to renewable energy, switch to those zero emission vehicles, reduce and compost food waste, reduce waste in general, and obviously educate students on climate change and being more sustainable, and take advantage of these no-cost resources and technical assistance that's available, and start applying or thinking about applying for these grants and rebates. So at this point, I will open it up to some questions, and I will put that link to the national program in the chat here too for you if you're interested in that program. Yeah, John, I see that you got your hand up. Start there.
I do, Chris. In terms of next steps, I saw the superintendent. I'm trying to think of the best path, given there's a lot of possibilities. And several years ago on the bus program, I just went to the manager of transportation for the high school district and just talked to him. And he was somewhat aware of the grants and all that, and how difficult it was to get Illinois grants because the bus had to be so many years old, etc. And he said, so we want it, but there were a lot of obstacles. And so I kind of like, all right, he wanted it. I couldn't provide too much more info at that stage. And this was probably, almost pre-COVID probably. And so since then, a lot of these grants have opened up. Is that still an avenue? Because I prefer to stay away from school board meetings, which could just become I just don't want to get engaged in a school board meeting and someone arguing at a school board.
Yeah, I can understand that. My experience with the school board members has not been that that's the easiest path, to be honest. And actually working with the superintendents or the staff, like the facilities staffs or the fleet management staff, they can actually, or transportation manager, they can actually be more receptive. And again, you're in a position, especially with the school board members, to educate them on all these programs. And I think it can be a little overwhelming for them, or they're not always up to speed on like buildings and transportation to begin with, and so then it's kind of a slow start to try to educate them and get them. So sometimes the staff is a better advocate, because they know, oh yeah, we need new HVAC. Oh great, there's money available to do that, or get something that's a little better product in our school. So
So if
definitely
we
think
went in like that, would you start with the superintendent or really go the level below, would you say?
I would start with superintendent and staff, or whoever that you can get in contact with at your school district. You can look at the directory usually on their website and try to figure out the best people to contact there. And so then, you know, what I usually do is say, hey, please pass this along to your coworkers if you have any questions. And usually, especially with regarding to building equipment, usually they have their facilities manager call me or we have a conversation. So it just depends on who kind of grabs onto it and passes it along as well. So yeah, it can
Okay,
be a little tough trying to get to the right person. We'll say that.
all right.
Rachel, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Thanks for all the really great information, Chris. One thing I noticed that you didn't mention was plant-based school meals, and those, of course, significantly reduce climate destabilizing emissions in comparison to meals including animal products. So, did everybody know that a first in the nation state law went into effect August 2023, which requires Illinois schools to make fully plant-based school meals that align with USDA nutritional requirements available to all students at no extra cost? In
I
case
did
that's
not
news,
I
I'm
did
going to
not
put
know
some
that.
links in the
Yeah.
chat. Most
That's
importantly, there's a website called More Plants on Plates Illinois where people can read an FAQ and send in the relevant forms to sign up their kids. Or if you're in high school, you can sign up yourself to sign up for plant-based school meals. Over 1,000 kids across 278 districts are already signed up and eating plant-based meals in schools. And since a lot of kids and young adults really care about the climate, encouraging them to sign up for this at least once a week, if not every day, that's a great way to get them involved in climate action, help them feel empowered to make positive change. It also helps set up kids for, healthy, sustainable habits that could last a lifetime. So I'm just really pushing, I think encouraging uptake in this super important program should be a key part of any Green Schools campaign. If we make this program popular and successful over time, it can have huge positive climate and health benefits. So, anybody who's interested in this, you can also email me for more information, but I'll put a bunch of links in the chat.
Thank you, Rachel. I was not aware of that program. So thanks for adding that. And yeah, you're right. We should definitely add this to the resources that we give to schools. Um, I love that there's an option, especially with kids with so many dietary restrictions and needing more choices at school. I know I have a picky eater, and that's why he usually takes his lunch from home because there's like four things that the kid will eat, but I do use the reusable Tupperware to go back and forth with his lunchbox. So that way we're not doing a bunch of single serve trash type things. So, but yeah, you just don't know when you send a lunch to school too, what your kid's eating and not eating and what's going in the trash. So I would be very interested in seeing what happens in that cafeteria. So, Kathy?
Hi, thanks, Chris. Lots of really good information. And Rachel, I didn't know about that either. And I work with a lot of young people, and I think that they will be interested. It's surprising how many like teenagers that care about the climate crisis are already eating vegetarian or vegan. So one thing that I wanted to add is like involving young people in this. I think that it really just having their voices is really powerful when you're advocating for these types of changes to the schools to make them more sustainable. So if you have any young people that you're working with to get them to make public comments at school board meetings or even to join you, if you go meet with administrators, I think that can be really a powerful way to push the school districts.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I think having the school districts and administrators hear it from the students that they want this, excuse me, is really telling and really great. And then also there's that education piece, right? You put solar panels on a school. Let's take that opportunity and educate the students on what are those things on the roof now? How do they work? Let's go out and like look at them and then have a little science lesson on how they work and maybe do a little cool science experiment depending on the age of the kids, right? Because I think that personally, I think that a lot of this technology, like solar panels and electric vehicles and such, that is just going to be the norm for our kids, this generation. And, this is something that they're going to grow up with, and they're just going to say, well, why doesn't every building have that? And just, I know for composting, we started with my son very young, and all the little kid cartoon things all had like episodes on composting and little songs and everything. So it made it really easy. And he's kind of just grown up knowing, how to sort the trash. So I think that's great. Pam?
Yeah, I'm wondering about the legislation with this information needing to be in the curriculum. Do you have any more, do you know any more about how that's going to roll out, or how will this curriculum be created? Who's involved, and whether it's, is it a statewide effort, and just anything that you can share about how it's going to be implemented.
Yeah, it's going to be a statewide effort because it's a state law now. I believe the Illinois Department of Education would be in charge of that, of figuring that out. But if you read the bill, it does talk about, credible science, and obviously they want to address the misinformation and some of the anti-campaign, the anti-science campaign. So I think that's really great because um, a lot of times, obviously, a lot of other generations didn't have that, and then they hear and see other things out there, and so hopefully this next generation can all be on the same page and understand climate science and the scientific basis for that. So yeah, as we learn more, because that was just passed in June, we'll definitely share that information. Um, I see another hand up there.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
hi.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for this presentation first. And I'm actually a student, so I was just wondering specifically what you think that high schoolers can do in their own school to be able to make a change. I know you mentioned some public comment, but anything else?
Yeah, I think you can always lead by example, especially, with school lunches or recycling or bringing that reusable water bottle. And because a lot of times,
Mhm.
our friends do things and then we start doing them. Um, so I think that's helpful too. It's that peer interaction and just asking for these things, asking your teachers, asking your administrators, your principal, hey, why can't we have a compost bin in our cafeteria? Or hey, why can't we sign up for this green schools program? We want to do this project, or we have ideas for projects. And so I think that hearing it from the students um is very powerful. And obviously, it depends on the age level, but especially with high school students, you guys know about as much as this as we do. So John,
Thank you so
Tom,
much.
yeah, definitely.
Tom was on first, Chris. I'll let
Oh,
Tom.
okay. Okay.
So Chris, my question is, I mean, you went through a massive amount of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, I'm sitting here trying to figure out how a school is going to make heads or tails of all this complexity with all these slides. You're kind of famous for these documents that you put together. Do you have anything that kind of pulls together in some kind of Excel spreadsheet or something of all of this? I mean, maybe
I
that's too much
do.
to expect, but I'm asking.
No, I've got a few things. So right now I have two fact sheets. They're each one page, I believe. One's on green schools, and it kind of just gives them some links and some ideas to get started. And then I have another one on the school buses on the grants, whichever ones are active at that point. So that is something usually that's my first thing I'll lead with is giving those to the school districts or the people I'm talking to or attaching it to an email. And because a lot of times they don't realize, oh, our building uses a ton of energy, we could reduce that, or oh, there's this grant available for a school bus. And so, John, to your point earlier, there are a lot of hoops to jump through on some of these grants. And that's why, getting that information to them as soon as possible so they can start reading through all the details and figuring out if it's a good fit for them, or maybe, oh, they're not prepared this year, but guess what? Next year. And then the other thing that we hear a lot about too is what is more productive for them? Is it applying for a grant? Is it just filling out paperwork for a rebate or federal direct pay? And so that's the choice they have to make. So That's really why they need all these options in front of them, is they need to figure out what's the best path for their school district. And that it all comes down, a lot of times to the money too. So, hey, we know we can get this rebate. It's a guaranteed thing here versus, oh, we could ask for this amount in a grant. Or maybe they have a strategy. Maybe they say, hey, we're going to go for that grant first. And if we don't get it, then we're going to still buy what we need by using the rebate. So, there is some strategy on the financial side for them that they need to consider. And again, those calculators and those resources are there to help them. The technical assistance is there to help them too. And I'm sure those people are a lot more knowledgeable than I am on those topics. So they should really take advantage of any of those no cost technical assistance programs that are out there to get started and read through some of those resource guides. I think there's a lot of case studies and a lot of examples in there that are very helpful. So, John?
Yes, our student, Neha, asked about what she could do at schools. I was thinking of two educators that are now retired, and they were science teachers, and they were advocates within their school districts for like climate club, science club, etc. So I'm thinking, for a group in school with an instructor slash teacher that maybe is a champion for climate, and have that be an avenue for expanding in the school, because then you've got students and a faculty member maybe to help support you. Because I know that's what they did when they were active teachers.
Yeah, and to that point, like the Green Schools program, they want to have a teacher involved, working with the students as well. So you kind of need that on some of these. Um, some of the students have given public comments before the school board, and they've asked them to pass a climate action plan or ask them to upgrade their buildings or different things like that. So, that's important too, is it gives a chance. Maybe they do it for their English class or their public speaking class or something, where they take that opportunity to write a public comment and give that, because that's real life opportunity. That's something that will give them a really great experience to learn how to do that. And be active in their local governments and their school boards in the future when they have kids and they want to make sure things are a certain way. So I know it can be a little scary, especially if you're a high school student, to have to get up there and give a public comment. And so, but the more practice, the more times you do it, the easier it gets. So I think that that's a great opportunity too for them. Really great learning experience for them to
Chris-
put that idea out there publicly.
Yeah, Chris, what are some of the challenges you're seeing? Maybe the top two or three,
Yeah.
biggest barriers with all this.
Well, you email people and you call them and you request appointments or you send them information and they ignore you. So that's probably my biggest uh issue is they just ignore you. Another barrier I think is educating the school board. I've had plenty of conversations with my school board. It's very frustrating. So I do also want to advocate, just like we do for local municipal governments and such, that let's get some people elected who get it, like who are advocates for climate action, who know, and if they have experience, if they're like a green architect or something like that, if they know buildings or they know transportation or something like that, let's get these people on the school board because they're going to listen to the other board members, more so than maybe somebody just showing up and giving a public comment. But I think the whole idea is you keep bugging them. You keep bugging them over and over again, and hopefully they'll get the message, or they'll see, hey, the school district next door did it, and you keep saying, well, why aren't we doing it? Another point I like to make is, again, when you're talking to people at your school district, say, hey, the school district up the street just installed solar panels. Why don't you give them a call and ask them about their experience? That's a very powerful experience. Learning about their experience is a very powerful thing because those people will tell you, oh, we had this difficulty, or, oh, no, this was a great experience, and here's how we did it. Here's how we're saving money. So I think that hearing from their peers is a really great opportunity, and just trying to stay involved in anything educational to make sure that just not getting left behind in climate action. Yeah, Pam?
You know, your comment about getting the right people in positions so that they get it, I think that a lot of times, at least this is true for most of the people I know, we think that there's nothing we can do because we think that all the action is at the federal level, but actually a lot of the action is at the local level. So I want to just give you one small case in point of trying to get the right people into positions. And I really think it's possible locally. We started a voluntary citizens group in Oak Park about 4 years ago, and it was called the Oak Park Climate Action Network, and it still exists. And we made it our goal to get the right people on the board of trustees at the next election and the following election, so that this board would get it and would start to set aside money for the kinds of things that will reduce emissions. It took 4 years, but we did replace a number of the board members, and we did get climate champions onto the board of trustees finally. And now we are getting a budget decisions made that are part of our climate action plan. So I really think that what you said is really important, and we shouldn't pass over it. We should think about, how do we organize locally to get the right people on the school board? Because the school board or the municipal council or board, boy, they make a lot of critical decisions that we, even how to use money coming down from the federal government. They either ignore it or they act on it. And if they don't care or they don't get it, they'll never act on it, even though the money's out there. So I think that part of our next steps as a chapter ought to be to have a strategy for getting the right people on the school boards in the places that we want to advocate for.
Absolutely. And with school boards, what I hear a lot of times, because I've talked to a lot of them, especially last election round, is a lot of them are educators and they care about children. And I get it. I do too, right? And I care about my child's education. But we also need some experts in there, financial. We need experts on buildings. We need experts on energy and transportation, because those are the decisions they're making. And so I feel like the education decisions are left up to the state or, some other groups, not necessarily the school board. So they're making a lot of those financial decisions about those operations and maintenance that really affect things. So, David?
Yes, I just thought of two things. How about a reduction of chemical fertilizers for the lawns? And how about transitioning to electric mowing for the lawns?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely, again, they're contracting out those services, and I know that they could procure those services with those certain things in it. And they can go more native plants. That's, you know, that's an option too. You don't need all that grass. You don't need to do all that mowing. There's alternative landscapes. And again, that's a great way to educate students.
Except you need the grass for the football field. That's the only thing.
Yeah, you do. But like you don't have to have that turf grass everywhere. And and also with playgrounds, making them more sensory friendly, also materials you're using there. I know my kid's school has this big blacktop area, asphalt area, and that's probably heating up during the day when they're out there playing. That's, not great for our urban heat island. So again, is there alternative material, or should they be using like Cool Seal on top of that asphalt when they seal it to make it lighter color and not absorb as much heat. And there's a lot of different things that they could be doing on the grounds as well. You're absolutely right. And then also, you think about them mowing and not only the noise and the smell from fumes, which we all have to deal with just in landscaping in general, but definitely with the kids, can they hear the teacher, what she's saying when the mower goes by? Maybe not. So, yeah, that's definitely something they should think about when they bid that out in their contract, put that in there, put extra points for contractors that are using all electric. That's what I would do. So, incentivize it, make sure that you get what you want there.
I'm just curious, is anybody on a school board? Anybody on this call on a school board?
I'm on a local charter school board. We're not elected, but I'm on a local charter school board, and we've been we're newish, and we've been looking at we pay for 6 buses, and it's very expensive. They break down sometimes, and so we've been looking at electric school buses, but it is complicated, and they weren't fully funded, and we had to hire people to actually drive them. So there's a couple hurdles, but I think some of these grants look really, really promising. And also for solar, sort of the same thing. Rooftop solar, you have to have a new enough roof. So then you have to buy the roof, and they're just little hurdles that a bigger grant would help for us, a school like us.
Yeah, a lot of schools, just like municipalities, they have their capital improvement plan, so they know what they're doing in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years because of the building and all the equipment aging, and same with transportation. They have to know when they replace things. So building that into their plans and obviously paying attention to that local legislation too. If the state does pass something that mandates them to do electric buses, I mean, how are they going to do that? How are they going to meet that, especially if they have to pay for it all themselves? So
I want to say quickly, I was in a meeting with Representative Moeller where the superintendent from U46 showed up and did not want that bill to pass because it was an unfunded mandate in their mind. So
yeah,
there was some pretty strong reaction to that. It was pretty interesting.
I bet there was. Yeah, I mean, I could see that definitely, especially for communities that are already struggling. So I could see that getting shut down, especially on the other side. So we'll see what if anything comes back, and anything that maybe hopefully they've learned from that, and maybe something that will actually help them get the buses. So Illinois also just was awarded 400, I think 60 million, $30 million. It was a large amount, over 400 million from the federal government. And part of that is like heavy duty, medium duty vehicle. And they're just getting started on this, so we don't know what's going to come out of it. But hopefully, they'll use some of that money to help fund things like this, especially other public agencies like school districts. That would be really great. Fund these grants or fund these rebate programs so that way when it is time to change out equipment, that there is something there to offset that higher cost. Tom?
Yeah, Chris. So we talked about this in one of our groups, the solar group. I think it's really important for people to understand that whether it's schools or city buildings or whatever, that seeing solar panels on the roof, seeing charging stations, seeing electric buses and electric utility vehicles, we see them. I live in the city of Naperville. It seems like most of the main, buildings in the city have solar panels on them. And while I don't agree with where they get most of their power, which of course is from coal, the Prairie State Energy Campus, at least it sets an example for people. Look at that. I go to Fort Hill, at different places that I go to, and you see them, and I can't help but think that people that go to these facilities see that, and they say, hey, maybe there's something to this, whether it's EVs or whether it's solar panels. I think it sets an example for us all to say, well, wait a minute, maybe I can do this for myself too. So I think it can spread. So anyway.
Yeah, I think it definitely opens up the conversation about, what is this and what is it doing and all that. I know I have a lot of conversations even with my neighbors about my solar panels. They want to know about them. And so it's fun to kind of talk through it with them and tell them like, hey, here, I saved all this money and hey, I've got this cheap electric bill. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, let me know. So I'm just looking in the chat here. Joy, you've asked, oh, you'd like to give an update and ask people to take action. Yeah, why don't you go ahead if you can unmute? Are you able to unmute?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thanks so much. HB 3713, Clean Air for Healthy, Equitable Schools. We were able to pass it in the House, but then it got stuck in the Senate. And we weren't able to get it to go through, when the session ended. So now we're pushing for the veto session, which is going to be, 2 weeks in November. So I'm going to put in the chat the fact sheet, and ask people to please call their senators to get it out of assignments committee to the education committee. That would be great. And there's also a petition, which would be nice if you guys could sign and share it. But most effectively would be great to call your senators, state senators, and ask them to pass the thing, to pass it, especially in veto session, because I think it dies after that. I'm not sure.
And
Okay.
Joy, you can put all the info on the bill in the chat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, we would love to do that and get a chance to read through. I had not heard of that one yet. So, yeah. Is there anything you can tell us about what's in there for the Clean Air for Healthy Schools? What are they asking for? Do you know?
We are asking for, good question, because we did have to water it down a little bit because we heard that ISB, the Illinois State Board of Education, wasn't was kind of neutral. So now we've got them to say they're not going to oppose it. Let's see, let me do this, but I think we still got in there that we'd like an assessment of the HVAC systems, because they're probably super old and they probably aren't using M13 filters. And for every active classroom to have CO2 monitors and effective HEPA air filters, because like Chicago Public Schools had gotten these IntelliPure filters, IntelliPure air purifiers that claim to be better than HEPA, but the clean air delivery rate is like super low and not fast enough. I think it's like maybe 1 per hour or something, which I think the recommended rate is at very minimum 300, or which would be like at least 3 times or something, or 600, and some people prefer 1200. So it's like the recommended amount varies, but what we're getting is like really low and it's not really doing much of anything. So hopefully we can get new ones that are more effective at clean air delivery. Be great.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Chris before we leave? Technically, the meeting goes to 7:15, but we don't have to stay if we're done. But feel free to pop the questions in the chat or ask Chris.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot that I presented on, but we can break that down into smaller pieces and get you started. Like I said, the first things that, contact them about, the grants that are available open right now and those 2 free programs, because, that's something that they don't have to pay for anything, which is great. And that's what we want to do. We want to get them started and we want to make sure that cost is not an obstacle. So I think that, if you can just pass along that information, look up who your school district folks are, and at least pass on, those 2 programs that are no cost and that are available right now for them to get started. I think, if you do anything after this, that would be the best thing to do. And then maybe establish a relationship with them and then provide them with more resources, especially as they come out.
Okay. Final call. Anything else before we go? Well, thanks a lot, Chris. I think you did a fantastic job. And if you can simplify some of this for us through some of your great work, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone else.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.